The Samsung S95F versus the LG G5 versus the Sony Bravia 8 II. These are three TVs that are likely going to be widely held as the best TVs in 2025, but which one is actually better? And I will have full reviews on all three of these TVs on my channel, and I'll be sure to include links in the description below. But I've had quite a bit of hands-on time, and I do want to address the matte versus glossy and the QD-OLED versus the tandem W-OLED, and really try and determine which one I think is overall going to be the best. And you know, look, spoiler alert, there is going to be a bit of personal preference when it comes to this, but I have been, honestly, I'll be honest with you guys, I have been really sitting here going, which one of these should I buy? And look, I'll be honest, I also did end up buying two of them. Which two did I end up buying? Now, originally, I was gonna actually just buy a 55-inch and a 65-inch LG G5 OLED. That's how much I loved it with my hands-on time with it during different events and seeing it in Best Buy and CES, etc. You get the idea, but I ended up actually changing my mind, and I ended up buying the 55-inch LG G5 OLED, which I will be using for my PC monitor behind me, and I actually bought for my TV down here the 65-inch Sony Bravia 8 Mark II. Why did I make those decisions? Well, I'll tell you why and quit burying the lead. So look, the LG G5, here's where I think it's really, really strong. It has excellent ambient light handling, excellent latency, and 165 Hz for PC gaming. And I do think if you have the room for a 55-inch display as a PC monitor, this is likely going to be one of the best options that you can choose in 2025. Now, that being said, there's a lot of monitors still not yet released that are going to be great, but they won't be nearly as bright. The HDR impact on the LG G5 is quite something to behold, and I could say the same about the Bravia 8 Mark II and especially the S95F. Their HDR impact is crazy. These things are really bright, and for HDR, that's very important. In fact, I will give it to the S95F. I think that's probably the brightest OLED I have ever seen. I mean, look, the LG G5 OLED in theory should be brighter, and in full white screens, it probably will win quite a bit more than it loses. However, the color brightness on the S95F is crazy, and the same kind of goes for the Bravia 8 Mark II, I felt like. In fact, in some ways, because of the screen coating, the Bravia 8 Mark II almost felt more deep, had more HDR impact, despite the fact that it wasn't as bright. And that's why I want to talk about glossy versus matte and the ambient light handling versus, on the W-OLED versus the QD-OLED options. So let's first start off with glossy versus matte. Which one do I think you should buy? I'll be honest, for the vast majority of situations, I would highly recommend a glossy OLED versus a matte OLED. You're gonna get an extra bit of oomph in terms of clarity, contrast, and depth on the screen. You will just get a better looking image. Overall, it's just gonna look better. And in terms of reflections, yes, you will get direct reflections on a glossy screen. However, those reflections are still gonna be there on the matte screen. They're just gonna be diffused over a wider area. So in my opinion, I don't think it's a better technique in terms of handling reflections overall. In certain situations, it can make them less distracting, but I don't think it's better. And I think what you give up in terms of image quality is not worth it to have a matte screen. I would highly recommend any glossy screen over a matte screen. And so for that reason alone, that's why I chose not to go with the S95F. Now, I do know you can technically peel it off, but of course, I cannot recommend doing that. And frankly, it's something I wouldn't do myself if I'm spending that much on a display. It's probably going to void the warranty, and I don't want to do that. I mean, that's a lot of money that you're out if something suddenly stops working, and then they have a reason to just simply deny doing any repairs on it. I can't recommend that. Now, to be fair, if you're after a QD-OLED and you are not willing to look at a W-OLED because you want the best colors possible, look, and if you want that and you want 165 Hz, the S95F is the only option. So you're gonna have to either, please don't, but you could peel off the screen, or you could just deal with the matte coating. And if that's what you want, it's your choice, it's your money. But at the end of the day, I really do feel like the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II, based on my hands-on time with them, as well as reviews, etc., which by the way, there's gonna be a review coming up very shortly for both the LG G5 OLED as well as the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II. I bought them both. I do feel like these two are the best, and the reason why I ultimately went with the Bravia 8 Mark II for my TV and the LG G5 OLED for my monitor is I felt like I would have more issues with ambient light handling in my room here than I would in where I'm gonna be watching it. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, so far, I feel like the Bravia 8 Mark II and the LG G5 OLED are equally good so far. They have their own strengths and weaknesses. The G5, higher refresh rate, better ambient light handling, and potentially a little bit brighter. But the Bravia 8 Mark II is gonna have a little bit better viewing angles and better colors, and I felt like it just kind of popped out at you more in a way that the G5 OLED so far hasn't quite done. Now, to be fair, their new tandem OLED does have much better color and it gets much closer to QD-OLED. It's just not quite there yet. So it's a really, really tough call between these two OLEDs. But right now, in my opinion, might change. I feel like these two are equally good and you really have to weigh up where am I going to be putting it. If you're going to have the lights on or windows open or anything like that, I feel like the G5 is the choice. And by the way, I'll have affiliate links to all these TVs in the description below. However, if you're going to be in a dark theater room, I feel like the Bravia 8 Mark II is also a good choice. And to be clear, I mean, look, the Bravia 8 Mark II, right away, I didn't love it because they tried to charge $4,000 for the thing when they first released it. Well, it's $1,000 off already. That is a wild reduction in price, and it's now actually technically a better deal than the LG G5 OLED at its current sale price. So the prices have come way down. They're probably going to continue to come down, and that does make them very, very competitive with each other. So that's my opinion. I think that so far the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II and G5 are basically equal and are good in different environments for different reasons, and that's why I bought both of them. But do you agree? Let me know your wildest opinions in the comments below so I can go ahead and not read that. No, I'm just kidding. I will read them. And also let me know which TV or maybe even monitor you want to buy in 2025. And also let me know, which one do you think is better? Do you think that a matte coating is better, or do you think that a glossy coating is better, as all sane humans do? Can't wait to see the fighting in the comments below. And for everything else display related, make sure you get subscribed here on The Display Guy. Whether you're looking to connect a new console, gaming PC, or just need a fast and reliable HDMI cable to connect over long distances, Rupro has you covered with their certified 8K HDMI 2.1 fiber optic cable, available in sizes up to 50 feet and can deliver a perfect full 48 gigabits per second connection over distances other cables could only dream of reaching. And now Rupro is offering a new detachable and upgradable pure fiber cable that sends the same 48 gigabits per second signal through its ultra thin and flexible housing, making it easier to route through walls. So if you're in the market for a cable that can drive a beautiful new TV or monitor, be sure to check out Rupro on Amazon today.